Masachet Zevahim Daf Sadi Aleph, continuing from Sadi Amud Bet, a few lines from the bottom of the Gemara. Ibadu is a question. Tadir Kudesh Ezem Kodesh. Ezem Kodesh. If you have something that's frequent, but the other thing you have is more Kadosh, what takes priority? Tadir Kodesh Mishum Tadir. Does frequent go before because it's more frequent? Or Dimon Kudesh Kadim de Kadesh. Or maybe Kadosh goes before because it's more Kadosh. Tashma's trying to prove Timidin because when the Musafin Tamid goes before the Musaf because it's more frequent. The Afa got the Musafin Kadishi, seemingly, even though the Musaf has more Kedusha. The more says Atu Shabbat the Musafin and Hanim Timidin Lo Hanim says why? Because the Musaf is Shabbat, but technically the Musaf, the Shabbat that makes the Musaf Kadosh also makes the Tamid Kadosh. No proof. Tashma bring a proof. Musafek Shabbat Kodeshin Kodmin, then Musafek Rosh Chodesh. If it's Shabbat Musaf, if it's Shabbat Rosh Chodesh, the Shabbat Musaf goes before the Rosh Chodesh Musaf, seemingly because of frequency. Where it says out to Rosh Chodesh Musafin, Lahani Musafek Shabbat Lahani. Same answer. It's Rosh Chodesh. Same Kedusha that allows that to become Kadosh, allows the other one to become Kadosh. No proof. Tashma, same similar format. Musafir Rosh Chodesh the Kodmin Musafir Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Chodesh Musaf before Rosh Hashanah Musaf. Afagav the Rosh Hashanah Kocha, even though Rosh Hashanah is more Kadosh. Gemara says, their proof. Frequency is more. Gemara says, Atul Chodesh Hashanah Musafir did that Musafir Rosh Hashanah Ditnane. Yes, the same way Rosh Hashanah makes its Musaf Kadosh, it also makes Rosh Chodesh Kadosh. No proof. Tashma, the Bara here, another reason why, regarding the Berachot on Havdalah, on Shabbat rather. When you say the Beracha over wine, you say it before the Beracha of the day. Is Birkat Hayan Tidira because you make wine more frequently. Birkat Hayom and Tidira, but Beracha of the day is not. If there's any Tidira, something that's more frequent goes first. After the Birkat Hayom Kadisha, even though the day Beracha is more Kadosh. So same answer. Atu Shabbat the Birkat Hayom Ahani le Birkat Hayan lo Ahani. Yes, the same way the Beracha of Shabbat allows the Beracha of the day become Kadosh, also allows the Beracha of the Yain become Kadosh. No proof. Where it says Tashma Amar B'Yahanan Halacha Mipna Adam Shem Minha La'akach Shem Musafin. Halacha is that a person can pray first Minha and then he prayed Musaf. Seemingly, Musaf is more Kadosh, but still, Minha goes first because of frequency. The Gemara said Atu Shabbat Tzvei Musafin Han Tzvei Minha Lo'ani. Same answer. Same way Shabbat allows the Musaf to become Kadosh, also allows the Minha to become Kadosh. So there's no precedence because of Kedusha. Tashma Shamim Shel Emesh Hatat V'Sham Shel Yom. Yesterday's Shamim versus today's Hatat or Hasham. Shamim Shel Emesh Kamin Shemesh. Yesterday's Shamim goes first. Ha'idi v'idi Yom sounds like both today. Hatat v'Hasham Kalei. Hatat v'Hasham goes first because more Kedusha. V'afakat the Shamim Tidid, even though Shamim is more frequency. So we see Kedusha is more important. Where it says Amarava Matsui Ka'amart. You're bringing a case that is more not frequent but more prevalent. It's found more. Tidid Kamibarin Dan Masud, like we're asking about prevalence, not frequency. Sorry, we're asking about frequency, not prevalence. Where it says Amara Ravuna Atu Matulu today, what do you mean? It's the same thing. They're intertwined with each other. Prevalence and frequency is the same thing. The Hatanya not pretty prove here. We excluded the case of a person who forgot to bring the Korban Pesach because the Pesach is not frequent. We will not exclude someone who forgets to do Milah because Milah is much more frequent. It's done more frequently, right? So therefore, a person who forgets to do Milah, he's Hayav more. Where it says, and therefore we see from here that even though Brit Milah is more frequent, it's more prevalent. Even though it's not frequent, right? A person's not doing Milah every day, but it's more prevalent because you see it more. So we see that it qualifies even more in frequency. Where it says, Ma'ati, that doesn't mean that it's more frequent. Should have mitzvot more common among mitzvot. If I didn't have an answer, Milad Pesach Kidradanya. Yes, in regards to comparing Brit Milah to comparing to Korban Pesach, that we'll say is more frequent since it's much more prevalent versus Korban Pesach. But in regard to Korbanot, that's different. That's more minute difference. Ibradahu. Tadir v'sheinu tadir tevekadim v'shahat le'im tadir. You have a frequent korban or a non-frequent korban. You brought together and you slaughtered the non-frequent one first. My what's the main run do we say? Once you slaughtered it, just bring it. Or maybe we say we should give it to the blood that you slaughtered from someone to mix it so it doesn't congeal. And then offer it to the guy after he slaughters the first one. Then you should bring the blood of the non-frequent one afterward. Tashma being proof. Yesterday Shalim, today's Hatat. Or Asham. Yesterday goes first. seemingly, if it was brought yesterday and it was left overnight, you still bring it today. Had Yom Dimadayash now today would be comparable to yesterday. Be'echel Modad of the case, the Kadim Shahated Lichmim, seemingly they slaughtered today before today's Shalmim before it says Shalmim before today's Hatat. Hatat Vashem Dimayad, and therefore it goes first. Seemingly, if something was not Kadosh slaughtered first, you set it aside. The Gemara says, Dilma is not a good proof. Shalmim da emesh v'hatat v'hasham diyom hechi mishkacha. What would be a case of yesterday's Shalmim, today's Hatat v'hasham? You're talking about you slaughter within both of them. If you're not slaughter both of them, you can still have a question about which one you prioritize. Tashbaz bringing the proof. Another reason that we said earlier for giving kiddush, the wine goes before the day. Birkat Hayam Tidra because wine is more frequent. But Birkat Hayam and Tidra, but blessing over the day is not frequent. But the other Shem is because the is more frequent over the non-frequent, the frequent one wins. So now, technically, when Shabbat happens, the kiddush does not come with Shabbat. Shabbat happens before kiddush, and therefore, seemingly, even though Shabbat's first, the wine still goes first. Where it says, since technically they both arrive, it's considered that you're still doing both at the same time. Tashma bring proof. Even though it's a nice proof. That might be a person, if he has an afternoon, he can pray Mincha first, and then pray Musaf. Even though the time for Musaf began earlier, seemingly, now goes before earlier. Where it says, no, since you look at it, since Mincha already arrived, compare it to the case where they both slaughter at the same time. Okay. Male Aha Bed Rabashi Ravina. That's my proof. Shahatu. Shahatu Kodem Hato, someone slaughtered the Quran before Hato, Pasul. The Venetian Marabuka Pasul already says it. Ben Haban between afternoon. Kodem to be slaughtered before the Quran Tamid. Kasher. The MMS, the Moshe actually took dam and supposed to mix the blood of the Tamid beforehand. You should mix the blood of Pesach before you throw until after the blood of the Tamid is brought. Seemingly, if something is done too early, you wait. Where it says, case talking about you slaughter the Tamid first. That case, since they're both slaughtered, you prioritize Tamid. Where it says, I think I can prove to you from the wording in the Mishnah. The Mishnah said, Ad she's rock hadam, simply throw the blood. The lotin ad she's hot with rock hadam. You didn't mention to slaughter the Tamid first. I mean, obviously, for me, that case is talking about where you both slaughter both, and you have to just throw the blood for the Tamid first. The next part of the Mishnah said, Kulana Kohanim Rishayim, regarding all these korbanot, Kohanim can cook whatever and in any manner they want. Meaning that it might have a wine. Makra Pasuk says, L'moshcha. L'moshcha, what does that mean? L'jdula, for greatness. Kedera Shemalachim Ochlin, the way kings eat, which is any preference you want. New Mishnah. Marabi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon said, if you saw oil being handed out for the Kohanim to share in the Hatzir, you don't have to ask what it is. Rather, you can assume that it's the remainder of the minha offerings of Bnei Israel. Or the remaining of the log of oil from the Mesurah. You saw oil being poured on the fires in the Be'ach. You don't have to ask what it is because that's the remainder of the minha of the Kohanim. Minhad Kohen Mashiach, or the Minhad the Kohen Mashiach, which is the anointed Kohen. And the reason why is because the reason why you can't assume it's a separate korban because people don't donate oil as a korban. Rabbi says, but you can donate oil. Amud bet. The Gemara, Amar Shmuel. According to Rabbi Tafon, the one who wants to donate an oil korban. The Kohen removes the komets with a flour and burns it. The rest can be eaten by the Kohen. My time why? Kamar Krabas who says korban mincha. Since you could donate oil. And since it's considered a mincha, my mincha comes out of just like the mincha. You prepare komets of flour and eaten by the Kohen. Af shemen comes out of oil as well. Marbi Zira Afanantina Graham from Mishnah, Marbi Shimon. In addition to Azran, Metav Shamaho, the Matar came in Hat Israel, the Loshman Zura, Shemetavin Shemin, because man the Marta Medina Halikim. Seemingly, this is all according to our Mishnah, or proof from the Resha. And our Mishnah told my case that our Mishnah mentioned that you can't assume because it's not donated. But seemingly, if you hold it donated, it can be distributed. Gemara says, Amar lebeya, Emasef, but this Mishnah says, Merida Shem Tana Gama Ishim, Eta Tzil Shamahu, El Matar Jikir Tzilin Had Kohanim, second case of the Mishnah, Mahad Komashia, Shem Deve Shem, Echad Man Maham Tanib, Kulan Ishim sounds like, in the case of the fires, we said if you see it being burnt, you can assume that it belongs to the Kohen Mashiach, or the Kohen Minha, but you can't donate oil. Seemingly, if it was donated, then you do pour it into the fire. The Gemara says, "Abaye kasher, Rishon Rizera kasher." Therefore, we can't explain the Mishnah. The question according to Rabbi in the first case, question according to Rizera the second case. The Gemara says, "Rishon Rizera, Rishon I'm safely no comments." Rizera can explain to you why. The first part of Mishnah is on a case where the oil was donated for the Kohanim and given to the Kohanim because it remained there of the Korban. Second case of Mishnah where it's burnt in the fire is referring to the comments. And Abaye kasher, according to Rabbi, how does he explain it? The Gemara says, "Tana Resha Azu Sefa." The first part of the Mishnah is being taught because of the last one, meaning. Don't infer from the second case, like you wanted to infer, but rather, we mentioned don't infer from the first case because we want to teach the second case. The second case is mentioned, therefore we mentioned the first case to keep it symmetrical, but there's no way of inferring it. Mar says, "Bishlam asay fatana mishum b'shresh." It makes sense to say the second case and use the first case, and the resh mishum sefa me'itahani. When do we have a case where you only meaning we mentioned one case and they mentioned second case because of the first case, but since when do we see the opposite? First one because the second one. Mar says, "And yes, I already marva tani reshem mishum sefer Israel so they do it." Tashma, yain kidev Rabbi Akiva. A wine korban is according to Rabbi Akiva that wine can be donated. This falim be poured into the bowls on the mebeach. Shemen kidev tefon leishim oil is according to Rabbi Tefon you couldn't donate. My love seemingly made the yain kula just like the wine that goes entirely to the bowls. Shemen leishim wine oil must be poured into the fire completely. The Gemara says midi yeah. Why is that a proof? Hakli tevhalida. Each one has their seven halachot. The oil does not have to be fully burnt. It can be given to the kohanim. Like machod ha'im shemen lo yifchod milog. Uh. Oil korban should not be less than a log. Whenever he says Chashud Lugin, three of them. Michael gives Machloket. Amaro Kamraban Kemed Rabbi Apava. Don Mina Mina. He says we learn the concept that whenever you learn from something else, you can continue to learn from it. Do Mina today. There's no way of learning that you can only learn from if you learn A to B, you can only copy A. They say that's the difference. The Rabban hold they learn and continue to learn. ما من عام النبي عشان من النبي just like من has donated so the oil can be donated. We now learn continue to learn from that what ما من حال log just like the oil من ha is log أف كان log عشان the oil. وما من حال كم تسوي شيء يعني just like من ha the coin can remove the comments and the rest taken by the coin. عشان كم تسوي شيء nothing to do by the oil. بإيدك من حال other Tana says no you only learn from it and you stop there. ما من حال من عشان من like oil من ha donated the oil can be donated. The oil can be donated you establish that. Can Zevahim like wine libation, meaning you don't learn it from there, you learn it from the other type of libation, which is wine. Man is Zevahim just like that wine is 3 lugin. Avshem Shloshim just like so too oil is 3 lugin. Man is Zevahim kulan is just like the wine goes completely to the bowls. Avshem kulan is the oil goes completely into the fire. Amal Rabbi by even Minha might like to bring a proof from Minha. They could I would agree doing now by now that you could continue learning. Rabbi Ezrach Gamal Rabbi learned it from the concept of the pasuk of Ezrach, meaning if Rabbi heard the halacha that you can continue learning from the source, you would still learn that the oil has to be minimum of 3 lugim because that's what you're learning from the wine. Where it says Amal Rav Huna Bered Natan Barapa, Mima Hachik, how can you say that? But it says Korban Mincha in the Medshim Adim Shivani from there they can donate oil. They come how much they donate, Shloshal Lugin. Umar Shamat Led Amar Shalgin, who the whole 3 lugin. Rabbi he become mighty, Lami Korban. Rabbi means learn from the word of Korban. Gemara says Amale is true. That was taught in the right time. That's taught there. I'm not going to argue, and therefore he retracts and now he learns according to that way that the comments from the oil donated is burnt, and it's Mahokot Hanim in that regard. Okay, we'll stop here for a moment.